Okay, we've got a centered ball of clay on the wheel head, and I'm going to say it's probably maybe 1.75. I actually haven't weighed it, which is typically what I would do. What we're going to do now is we are going to make a cylinder. The cylinder is the most traditional form to start out with after you learn to center, and it's a basis of a lot of shapes. Traditionally, you start with a straight-sided cylinder, and then you, on your own exploration, or an instructor would show you how to make some shapes. So today we're going to make a flat bottom, which means inside is flat. We will trim the outside bottom later to make it flat also. And we're going to pull a straight-sided cylinder. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through this as if we're going to do it, but I'm going to show you how you kind of correct problems. Because what I've seen with my students is that they'll get a little nervous, or one side's a little thinner, or it's not open right. So we're going to address some of those issues today, okay? Okay, so you're going to dampen your hands, lock your elbows. Okay, first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to open your piece. Now, you don't need to go fast when you are opening. You want to go fast. You want to go fast when you're centering, but you can slow it down for opening. Now, a couple different thoughts. Some people put a stationary hand, go and they press, one finger to get that center point. Other people will take two hands, go down, and do the thumb. So you do whatever feels comfortable to you. Remember, try different ways, see what works for you, or make up your own, okay? But I'm just going to show you kind of what I have done and what has worked for me. It's important to go down into the center. I typically go down what I think is approximately half an inch for a beginner. Okay. Because if you go down too far, what's going to happen if you are a new student, you might have a tendency to go too far. Okay. Dampen our hands again. What you're going to do now is you're going to pull open the bottom. Okay. So what you're going to do, I like to support my hand, and I recommend this to students. If you have any shake issues, it just helps to give you a little more confidence. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my fingers where they were. I'm bending them at that knuckle. And what I'm doing is I am pulling back. I mean, literally, you can lean back with your body, and you're just going to open it to about where you think you want the width. It's much easier to open it now about the correct width than to go back and try to make it a little bit wider or a little bit more narrow. So I'm looking at the base. I'm thinking of a cylinder, maybe turning it into a coffee cup. So initially what I'm going to suggest that you do is I'm going to strongly suggest you start off right away compressing the bottom. You're going to take a sponge. Any kind of sponge will do. You can have something like this or a sea sponge. Push down on it. Go from the center to the outside of your bottom area. Now, you want to make sure that you have enough room to kind of get your hands in there, okay? Now, another way that you can flatten it if you have bumps or it's not uneven, you can take your thumb and use your thumb kind of like a tool. So again, support your hand. I'm pushing this part of my thumb into the clay. I'm keeping it kind of stiff. And I'm just going across that bottom. This is called compressing the bottom. Now, you might think, well, why is she taking that much time with that? If your piece is not compressed, what will happen is you'll have a tendency to get what's called an S-crack. Okay. An S-crack literally is in like the shape of an S, sometimes backwards. And it's really, really sad. You've got this beautiful piece, and all of a sudden you can't use it because you can't glaze it properly. Now we're going to bring this up. What you're going to do is wet your fingers. I suggest, particularly for newer students, your longest finger goes inside at the bottom, and put your thumb on that bottom. You may even want to push in your thumb a little bit, kind of get like a little natural kind of hole for that. Again, make sure they're damp. Take a damp sponge, I put it right here to kind of keep that thumb wet. And then I take my other thumb and put it together on that. And then I'm going to squeeze together and come up. Okay, so I'm pushing together. Now, the clay has nowhere to go but up. And I am slowly coming up behind it, as you can see. Now, I'm going about the speed of the wheel. I just did a very, very small pull. Notice that still thick, still got a lot of thickness in there. With each pull, touch the front and back with a flat finger. This helps to keep the centering. It's called compressing the rim. I'm going to go back inside, compress that again, and this time I'm going to pull. Going back as far as I can in the bottom, as far as I can on the outside. Now, I'm pushing together, and what I'm doing is I am slowly coming upward. Now, I'm having a tendency to come a little more inward. Okay. Now, I'm going to come up here, kind of smoothing that a little bit. Still have a lot of clay. Now, what you will notice, I'm going to go back in and soak up a little bit of that water. Okay, if I couldn't get my hand in there, I really couldn't pull it up any further. And this probably looks pretty tall to you right now. When you are throwing, what's interesting is your pieces look ginormous when you're this close. You get further away and you go, not so big. This piece is still pretty thick. I wouldn't ever leave a piece this thick unless I was going to do like some super serious carving. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have a piece that's just more like a weight than like something you want to use. So now it's going to be harder to get back down in there this time, okay? So you have to kind of make your hands more like a claw. Maybe get a little closer. Again, you want that wet finger there. Again, you're going to push in from the front and the bottom. So you are coming up each time that the wheel is moving. And you take your hands very, very slowly off of that. Okay? And you want to do that touch front, touch back, compression sort of thing there. Okay. Now, you probably could even pull this up again. Typically what you want to do is you want to have your full height, I should say. You want to have your full height by the time you get to where you want to be. So maybe I'll pull it up one more time, just a little bit, and then we're going to straighten up these sides, okay? It's getting a little harder here. Okay. I might even slow it down just a tad. Push in a little more from the bottom. Now, I want you to notice that my two hands work together. Now, I can feel the inside getting drier, which makes me a wee bit nervous, but I'm going to finish that pull. So try and just do it super slowly. Okay, I'm going to do the compression again. I'm going to get in there and squeeze, compress that bottom, get any excess water out of there. You do not want excess water, you don't want that S-crack. Now, a couple things you can do now. To straighten it out, it's not too bad, we've got a little bit more thickness on the bottom, is I'm going to put a wooden rib, stiff wooden rib, on the outside. I'm going to take off some of that excess. And of course, save your clay. You can recycle that or make slip from it. I'll kind of wipe it off here. I'm going to go back and just get a little more of the excess. Okay, I'm going to dampen my hand. And this time, I'm going to hold this steady. And from the inside, I'm pushing outward. And then my hand is slowly coming up. And the rib on the outside is slowly And we have 2. This helps get rid of some of the lines. Now if you see lines, it's probably just because you got some excess clay on your rib. So I can go back, push in. I'm going to get my hand a little bit damp. I'm going to do it one more time. And again, if you're feeling a little nervous with this, just go and do it just a little bit slower. Sometimes you won't even need to do this, but I'm showing you what you can do if you have some wobbles. Now, if you find that when you look at it, the thickness of your rim is not even, that is an indication that you were not completely centered, or that when you open it, maybe you threw it off. So please don't open your pieces until they are completely centered. Double check that and take your time opening it up. Now you can take a little angle tool or your rib and you hold it at a little angle. We're going to kind of go under there. Just going to get a few of those little lines off there. Okay, looks pretty good. Sometimes it's harder to see when you're this close. And then you are going to cut it off. Now, this particular wire has a little kind of a waviness to it that will kind of give you a pattern at the bottom. I would use a more traditional one for most of you. I put a little extra water on here. Now, you don't have to do it spinning, and I think a lot of you, being new, might be more comfortable doing, well, let's not. A little bit of water, hold it tightly, and bring it underneath your piece. And I would do it more than once. Now, as far as lifting your pieces off of here, there are things called pot lifters. They're metal pieces you put under and lift up. If you dry your hands, okay, let's sit up for a minute. Dry your hands completely. Very carefully you can lift it. You should store it on something flat, like a piece of wood or a bat. Typically you put a paper towel or something underneath it so it won't stick to it. So this little cylinder right now, it's about a quarter of an inch thick. I could shape it, but the whole idea was to show you a straight-sided cylinder. And I'm going to say it's probably about 5.5–6 inches, which would be a really good size for a jar or a mug.